Hey guys, it's Miss Millwood, and we're going to go through a little review on literary elements, also known as literary devices. We talked about this at the very beginning of the school year, if you can remember way back when we were reading stories like Duffy's Jacket and Priscilla and the Wimps. We took a look at the literary elements, but it's been a while that we've really focused on them. So when Miss Binkley and I were grading your slideshows for the story Tuesday of the other June, we realized that we really need a bit of a review. So we're going to review together some of the literary elements or devices that we're going to be focusing our attention on right now. And then we're going to apply these to a new story. So let's get let's get started. So we use literary elements, or authors use them, to kind of help us as readers kind of delve into the important aspects of the story. There are a lot of these, but for today, we're going to be reviewing characters, setting, plot, conflict, and theme. We're not going to do point of view today, and there are others as well, but these are the ones that we focused on in your assignment for the slideshow. So we're all super comfortable with characters. That's pretty clear. I think we're all really comfortable with the idea of a protagonist and an antagonist as well. Where we seem to have some confusion was in these next two slides. So we asked you on your slide presentation to identify if June, the protagonist and main character, was static or dynamic. And by taking a look at your assignments, it was clear that we've forgotten what these two terms mean. So as a reminder, a static character is a character that does not change through the course of the story, a character who remains the same. Whereas a dynamic character is a character that changes in some ways. So if we take a look at the story Tuesday of the other June, if we look at June, the protagonist, she is a static character. Excuse me. She is a dynamic character. Let me say that again. June is a dynamic character because she does change. How does she change? Well, if you remember at the beginning of the story, she's very sort of timid. She's very obedient. She doesn't want to cause her mother any strife. She listens to her mom's advice. But at the end of the story, she sort of hits her breaking point, and that's when she screams, "No!" And at that moment, June becomes a dynamic character because she changes. The other two characteristics of characters that we've discussed is whether or not a character is round or flat. So a round character is a character that really is well developed. You can almost imagine them being a real person, someone you might want to be friends with, or someone that you might feel that you don't want to be around. You know a lot of things about them. You know things about their family, their likes, their dislikes, etc. Whereas a flat character, kind of as the name makes us believe, flat characters are characters that really we just don't know that much about. And if you think again about June in the story, she's really a flat character. We know some things about her. We know she goes to swimming class. We know she moves. We know it's her and her mom, but we really don't know much more than that. Some of you really struggled with what to do with June as a character. And so you started making things up like, I think she has brown hair, and I think she's, tall or short. Um, and those might be the way that you imagined June as you went through the reading. But really, we don't even know some of the basic physical characteristics of June. So she is definitely a flat character. Moving on, we've got setting, which most of us are pretty clear on. But one thing we forget is that it includes not just where, which we usually remember that, but it also includes the time. And this could be, summertime in the case of June at the pool would be the setting for Tuesday of the other June. So setting time and place, not just place. Okay, the plot. So this is where we have all of the important events can be laid out in that plot diagram. And so we're going to talk about the exposition, the inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, and conclusion. So let's start with the exposition. If you remember, the exposition has three parts. It's the very beginning of the story, and it gives us some background information. It tells us about the characters, it tells us about the setting, and it gives us a hint of the conflict. Okay, so we don't really know much yet, but we start to get a feel for what's going on. The next plot diagram spot, I suppose, is the inciting incident. This is the event that sets the whole rest of the story into motion. If this event didn't happen, then none of the rest of the story would have happened. So I would say that the inciting incident in this story of Tuesday of the other June is when June meets the other June. That moment changes everything. Up until that point, protagonist June was fine, but as soon as she meets antagonist June, everything changes. So after after the inciting incident, the rising action begins. And as we talked about, and as you can see on our plot diagram, the rising action is the longest part of our diagram. So most of the events in the story will fall somewhere in the rising action. And this is a series of events that lead us to the climax, to that big emotional moment in the story. Okay? So all of those things like, June getting pushed in the pool and June's mom giving her advice and June moving to the new house, June discovering that the other June lives at the same place, all of those events would align on our rising action or part of the plot diagram. Then we get to our climax. Climax is going to be one event only, and it is like that big moment. This is like that big moment where you finally go, oh my gosh, June, you can't keep taking this. This is that time when the big thing. So I would say that the big emotional event in this story is that moment June finally um, when June finally says no, stands up for herself. That would be the climax. So after that big moment, we go into the falling action. This occurs right after the climax when the main conflict has been resolved. So this is that moment when the dynamic between the two Junes sort of changes. Now that protagonist June has stood up for herself, the other students are laughing at antagonist June. Things sort of start to be resolved. And then finally, we get to the resolution. So this is how the story ends. And you get the idea in this story that things are going to be different from now on for both Junes because June has learned to stand up for herself. So, okay, we made it through plot. Let's take a look at conflict. Now, it's clear that a lot of us feel really good with conflict. We know that it's the main problem of the story. And as we talked about, we have two overarching types of conflict. We've got internal conflict, which is a struggle happening within the character, and this would be character versus self. Now, some of you actually had interesting analysis on Tuesday of the other June, and you identified it as an internal conflict, character versus self, because protagonist June was kind of struggling with herself, how to handle the situation with protagonist June, and should she obey her mom's advice or not? The external conflict is a struggle between a character and an outside force. So, character versus character, character versus nature, or character versus society. There are more than that, but those are the ones that we focused on. And most of us identified this conflict as a character versus character conflict, June versus June, right? Okay, we're going to skip point of view and we're going to go to theme. So the theme is the central message of the story. So when you're trying to figure out what the theme is, ask yourself, what is the author trying to teach me through the story? Most often in a story, it's not going to say directly, this is the theme, listen up, this is the theme. You kind of have to pick it up. And let me just remind you, there are three things that should make your theme a solid theme. One, it's universal, meaning it applies to all of us, not just to the characters in the story. So it's written in general terms. Two, it's a complete sentence. Okay, so it's not just the theme is love or the theme is bullying. It's something more complete than that. And finally, as I already kind of stated before, um, it is a message that applies to us all. Okay, so it's a global or universal message expressed in a complete sentence. And what I was trying to come up with was that you can find textual evidence in the story to support your theme. So I kind of got messy with that. Let me say it again. Universal message written in a complete sentence that you can support with textual evidence. Okay, so this week you are going to be taking a look at this famous story, Rikki Tikki Tavi, and Miss Binkley is going to guide you through this process. You are going to be identifying the literary elements that we just discussed in the story Rikki Tikki Tavi. So just like you did with Tuesday of the other June, you will be highlighting and commenting. So we're going to be annotating with both highlighting and with words, with notes, all of the different literary elements that we just talked about as it shows up in the story. So you're going to get more information and another video. We hope that these are helpful for you. I am almost out of time here, so I just wanted to say a big thank you. I know things are kind of weird and strange for us all right now. I really appreciate those of you who have just hung in there and are doing your best to complete all of your assignments. And if you're behind, take a big deep breath. You can tackle this. We got this. And if you need support, we are here for you. So until soon, have a lovely day. Bye.